Hi, I'm Sarah Cook. I'm a recipe writer and a food stylist. Now, one thing that people say to me is that it takes too long to make their own bread. So a great way to save time is to do a double batch to get double the amount of loaves. And kneading a double batch of dough takes barely any extra time, and neither does rising it. I've got an olive oil dough here. It's perfect for a batch baking because lots of the recipes that you make from it freeze beautifully. Now you can go to bakingmad.com and watch a step-by-step video of how to make this one. This one I made earlier and it's risen, so it's ready to go. I'm going to show you how to make some pizza bases, some gorgeous fennel and parmesan breadsticks, and an amazingly boutique, expensive looking bacon and onion focaccia. So first, let's do some pizza bases. As I said, this is a double batch, so I'm going to make a full batch of pizza bases, so I'm going to take half to start with. There we go. Now, any dough that you're not working with at the moment, put back in your bowl and keep it covered with a damp towel to keep it nice and moist. And I'm going to pull off a chunk and get going on these. So I've got a rolling pin and use a little bit of extra Allinson strong white flour to stop it sticking. Now, as this is an olive oil dough, it's lovely and stretchy, so you should be able to get it nice and thin. Keep turning it and stretching it. And I like mine nice and rustic shaped, so people can tell it's homemade. Here we go, that's about right. So I've got some baking parchment here, and I'm just going to layer up my pizza bases between the parchment, and then these are going to go straight in the freezer raw. I'm not going to bake them at all, so I'm just going to top with another piece, and I put my next one on top of that, and you can pull them straight from the freezer and bake them exactly the same timings as on the pizza base recipe from Fresh. Just top with your favourite toppings and you've got supper in 10 minutes or so. So next I'm going to show you how to make some breadsticks. So this is another single batch of dough, and I'm going to half that, so I'm working with half. And again I'm going to take a small portion and I'm going to make some twisted breadsticks. So using my rolling pin, once more, a little bit more flour to stop it sticking, a little bit on my surface. We want to roll this out to a thin rectangle. Just keep stretching it and pulling it. It's so lovely and springy that it will spring back, so you do need a little bit of elbow grease to get this going. I think we're about there, and then I'm going to cut this into strips. So these aren't maybe the classic kind of rolled round breadsticks you've seen, but by twisting strips like this, you get an extra bit of crunch, so you get a really, really lovely texture when they're baked. So let's just do a few to show you. I'm going to hold each end and simply twist like that. And they look great. Now let's get my baking sheet and pop them on. These are fantastic. You master this recipe because the flavours that you can add to them are absolutely endless. So if your kids like cheddar, you can do cheddar and maybe spread them with some Marmite first, or some sesame seeds before a curry or something like that. And let's just do one more to show you. So again, you just hold each end and literally twist in opposite directions. And then if you press the ends on, that'll help them stick and stay in place. Now, as I said, I'm doing fennel and parmesan, so I've literally got some lovely fennel seeds. Just going to scatter them on. Shows how alive my dough is. Be nice and generous, and you can just sort of press them in to help them stick. And then I've got some grated parmesan And as that melts, that will stick all those lovely fennel seeds to the bread as well. So that's my breadsticks, and now I'm going to show you how to make a gorgeous focaccia loaf. So I've got my final half batch of dough, and I'm going to need some softened onions and some crispy bacon bits in. Again, just like the breadsticks, you could flavour this with what you like. So again, a bit of grated cheddar, or if you want to go Mediterranean, some olives and sun-dried tomatoes. Really, once you've mastered the shaping of this, the flavours are absolutely endless. So just knead that in. You want all those lovely yummy bits distributed evenly through the dough. I think that looks good. And now for the shape. Now the focaccia has a very, very distinctive shape, and it ends up looking a bit like a leaf. So you start by rolling it to a rectangle. So again, keep your rolling pin nice and dusted so it doesn't stick, and then just start to roll out the dough. And you want it a little thicker than what you rolled the rectangle to for your breadsticks. And again, because your dough is so lovely and springy, it will spring back, so it will take a little bit of work. So just keep stretching it and pulling it as you go. We're just about there. So I'm going to transfer it onto my baking sheet now. I'm going to dust it with a little bit of flour first so it doesn't stick. And then let's lift that on. So you can see I've got a rough rectangle. I'm going to take a sharp knife, and again I'm going to dust it with some flour so it doesn't stick, and start by cutting a diagonal cut from one corner to the next. Don't cut quite through the corners. So start a couple of centimetres in and cut all the way through the dough, just like that. So you end up two halves like that, and then we're going to make 3 diagonal cuts on either side so it starts to look like a leaf. So again, not cutting right through to the edge. There's one, there's a second one, and one more on that side, and repeat on the other side. So 1, 2, I'm going to flour my knife again, just started to stick there, and 3. Right, now the most important thing about this loaf is stretching out the dough now, so that when it proves again and doubles in size, and then when it bakes in the oven, the holes don't close up, because you want this to come out with still its gorgeous shape. So stretch it right out and make sure you've got plenty of space between the petals of your leaf. Just like that. And that's perfect. So I've got my breadsticks made, I've got this gorgeous, gorgeous rustic focaccia made. They're ready now to cover with, again, with a damp tea towel or a little bit of cling film that you've brushed with a little bit of oil, and rise again until they're doubled in size. And then I'm going to part bake these so these can go in the freezer. Now the secret to part baking is to bake things at 40 degrees lower than the recipe states. So for this, cooking at 220, I'm going to do it at 180, and I'm going to cook it for the exact amount of time on the recipe. Then cool it, and it's ready to go straight into the freezer. Then when you want to eat it, pull it out at lunch with friends or for a last minute supper or something like that, you pop back in the oven at the temperature on the recipe, and something like this will be done in about 10 to 12 minutes. So it'll crisp up the edge and it'll taste delicious and warm and as if you've made it that day. Now obviously you can cook these fresh, then just follow the instructions on the normal recipe. So that's everything ready to go in the freezer, all from one double batch of Allinson's olive oil dough, and I've got a massive batch of parmesan and fennel breadsticks, a gorgeous rustic focaccia loaf, and a load of pizzas for a quick standby supper. How easy was that?